Autoimmune diseases are growing exponentially in the developed countries of the world, so much so that it is more common than heart disease and cancer combined. This rapid emergence of autoimmune diseases strongly outpaces that which is possible by genetic mutation and genetic pass down, meaning that changes in the human way of living within the past 30 years is creating a fertile breeding ground for these chronic illnesses. We use more chemicals than ever before. We eat more processed foods than ever before. We spend more time looking at screens than ever before. Our mental health is lower than ever before. We are more disconnected from ourselves and the earth that birthed us than ever before. My name is Issac Rydalch, and on top of diet, exercise, and stress mitigation, I'm exploring the effects of psychotropic plants on autoimmunity. Currently in the modern paradigm of medicine, chronic illnesses are treated using conventional medicine practices. This approach looks at the patient's symptoms to identify the illness and then treats the illness with either surgery or pharmaceuticals. However, when it comes to autoimmunity, this approach is only good at numbing the patient's symptoms, usually with immunoinhibitors, and avoiding the root cause issues at hand. Treating autoimmunity, mental health, or any other chronic illness with this approach is equivalent to removing all the rocks in your neighborhood in hopes to prevent the neighborhood hoodlums from breaking your windows. However, the rocks aren't the problem. They are the byproduct of the problem. And taking this approach is only going to get your house barraged with toilet paper. I'm sure you see the insanity in this, but look how many of us fall into this paradigm just because a dude with a white coat and a label in front of his name recommended it.
Trust me, I know what I'm doing.
I've been to many different doctors and specialists over the course of my life, and it blows my mind how rarely I've been asked about diet, exercise, and stress mitigation. And if these conversations did arise, me and the specialist didn't spend more than 5 minutes discussing it. But instead of analyzing and fixing these root cause issues, myself and others are quickly offered pharmaceuticals that band-aid our symptoms. Our healthcare systems, especially the ones in the United States, are not interested in healing chronic illnesses. The amount of money made off of keeping people sick is sickening. And if you don't believe me, I'll give you a quick example. How is it that 1 in 4 type 1 diabetic Americans can't afford their insulin? It costs at most $133 for insulin manufacturers to create a 1-year supply for a type 1 diabetic. Yet the Americans that can afford it are paying upwards to $1,000 a month for their insulin supply. This is because of tactics like patent evergreening, pay for delay schemes, time and money wasting lawsuits, and pharma marketing schemes used by the insulin corporations. If you're like me, you may be wondering, how is this even legal? Oh, maybe because this insulin monopoly has good ties in with the corporate headquarters of the United States, and they have no problem shelling out millions of dollars to influence politicians in their favor. But for the type 1 diabetics out there, you don't have to worry for very much longer because large organizations like the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation and the American Diabetes Association are spending millions of dollars trying to research a cure for type 1 diabetes. Oh, wait, not so fast. These organizations are receiving a large part of the money they're using for research from the corrupt pharmaceutical insulin companies, which have no desire to heal type 1 diabetes. The insulin economy is very representative of the rest of the healthcare systems in the United States. And if you don't believe me, I suggest you check out documentaries like Sicko by Michael Moore or The War on Health by Gary Noller. So what are people with chronic illnesses supposed to do? The way I see it, you have 3 options. You play into the system where you'll spend lots of money just to mask your symptoms. And don't forget the happy pills, because with a falling apart body, there's usually a lot of depression involved. 2, you take the warrior's path and take all of your own health into your own hands. Or 3, you give up. And in 2019, I gave up. At 1 year old, my mother was told to bring me to a specialist after our primary care physician noticed that I wasn't growing any eyebrows. The specialist informed my mom that I had alopecia universalis, a disease in which your autoimmune system attacks its own hair follicles. The specialist stated that in all of her years of practice that she had never seen a case so severe for someone so young. During the next 10 years of my life, my immune system went for my joints, for my skin, and then for my pancreas, resulting in me being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. But it didn't stop there. At 14, my immune system started attacking my digestive system, and at 15, my nails.
The study asked the question of whether psychiatric stress-related disorders like post-traumatic stress disorder are linked to autoimmune diseases.
All autoimmune diseases are chronic inflammatory diseases.
A radical new approach to depression examines the link between inflammation in the body and mental health.
The inflammation could actually be directly causing the depression.
At 23 years old, my lifelong depression became so immense that my life seemed not worth living anymore. I attempted suicide with the same insulin that sustains my life. The insulin dose, which was more than enough to kill me, didn't, and it was made pretty clear to me that I was not going to be able to take the easy way out of this life. So if I had to continue living, I was going to have to find a way to make my life livable. Six months later, I found myself driving through one of the most beautiful meadow landscapes I've ever seen. I wanted so bad to take in the beauty of that scene, but my depression was putting such a dark screen over my reality that I was unable to feel the fullness of that moment. I began to cry from the depths of my soul, and I wailed out to the universe, like, I want healing. Like, show me how to heal. Then suddenly out of nowhere, a powerful thunderstorm rolled through that meadow. It was so intense that I was forced to drive 10 miles per hour on a 60 mile per hour road. I didn't know it at the time, but that was the universe answering my request. Within the next month, I was bombarded with so many synchronicities that eventually led me to a master of consciousness and the plants that person works with. Within a 2-week span of working with these plants, my lifelong depression was practically eradicated, and I was shown that it was possible that I could heal my body. I sat with this for a few months. At the time, my professional career was really starting to take off. My smarts in research and engineering had me working at a national lab. I also had a professor that went through hell and back to get me into his research lab as a PhD student because I could care less about a GPA or getting a good score on the GRE. But now there was a fork in my road. I could continue my professional career, or I could dedicate my life to my well-being, my spiritual work, and working with the plants. I knew which path I had to go down because of the amount of irrational fear that would come to my mind when I thought about working with the plants. So I've been hard at this work for a little over a year now, and I do have some ideas as to why my immune system is not functioning properly. The muscles in my body, especially the ones in my stomach, are in a perpetual clenched state, just as if I'm fearing something bad is about to happen to me. And this comes at no surprise if you take a look at the inner workings of my mind. Instead of being and flowing with the universe, I'm constantly analyzing and interpreting what is happening in the moment as to get some idea about what's going to happen next. And why do I do this? Well, unresolved trauma. There also seems to be a strong correlation between the arrival of new autoimmune diseases in my life and traumatic events in my life. But my immune system started attacking my hair follicles before I was even 1 year old. And as far as I'm aware, there was no traumatic event during that first year of my life or during the gestation period. However, my mom has some of the most severe unresolved trauma I've ever seen in a human being. And gosh damn, that woman is a warrior, because if I had an ounce of what she had, I don't think I'd be here right now. But then again, is it possible that a traumatic blueprint got passed down to me in the womb? There's research starting to show that traumatic events during childhood can be correlated to autoimmune diseases. But there's a lot of people out there that have trauma from their childhood that don't have autoimmune diseases. So what is it that myself and others with autoimmune diseases do with the trauma that causes this dysfunction in the immune system? Well, this is where the psychotropic plants come into play. Ayahuasca is an ancient brew used by many indigenous tribes of the Amazon jungle, and it is a combination of a shrub and a vine. This plant mixture contains an orally active version of DMT, which is one of the most potent psychedelics known to man. When ingested, the user can go to the spirit realm, the underworld. They could relive past experiences that have unresolved emotional residue, or anywhere that their spirit needs to go in order to heal. The healing potential of this plant mixture is largely based on one's ability to release all control and the integrity of the medicine man or shaman that is leading the ceremony. This all seems magical and amazing, but if you're like me, you're either going to need direct experience or scientific evidence to convince you. So let's take a quick look at the very limited amount of research that we have out there today. So I know research can bore a lot of people, and the people that like research are also the same people that are typically okay with doing the digging themselves. So I'm gonna run through this super speedy. So I'm going to be referencing this publication from the Immunology Letters, and it's called Psychedelics as a Novel Approach to Treating Autoimmune Conditions. The two authors of this paper, Caitlin and Attilia, have compiled over 140 other research papers in order to get this one, so this saves me a lot of time. In autoimmune diseases, the keystone feature is chronic inflammation, and a good way of analyzing inflammation is with cytokines. Cytokines act as lighthouses, but instead of drawing in ships, they're drawing in immune cells. So in other words, the cytokines are like the drill sergeants telling the immune cells where to attack. So in this paper, they're showing all these different studies in which ayahuasca, DMT, and other psychedelics are suppressing the pro-inflammatory cytokines, thus modulating the immune system. Furthermore, DMT has a high binding affinity to the sigma-1 receptors in your brain and also the 5-HT receptors, which are your serotonin receptors. While this area of research is very underdeveloped, we know that these receptors have a big part to play in the inflammatory response in the body. The very few studies that are out there showing the effects of psychedelics on these receptors are showing that they actually have a really positive effect on the immunoregulation. Gut permeability has also been shown to be a keystone feature in autoimmune diseases, and while there's practically no research out there, we do know that ayahuasca and other psychedelics do have an effect on the microbiome in the gut. As I stated earlier in the video, there's strong evidence suggesting that traumatic experiences during your childhood and prolonged stress may contribute to the development of autoimmune diseases. The research suggests that depression and anxiety could be putting inflammation into the central nervous system, causing the cytokines to dysfunction. And while there's not a lot of research on how ayahuasca affects depression or mood disorders, if you talk to a lot of people that have had positive experiences with this plant brew, they all say that it helped their depression immensely, and I am one of them. Harmaline, one of the active ingredients in ayahuasca, has been shown to replenish beta cells in the body. So theoretically, if you could replenish enough beta cells, you could reverse type 1 diabetes, assuming that your immunoregulation is in order. Whew, okay, that's enough for now. Let's get back to the normal stuff. Chances are, by the time you're watching this, I will be deep in the Amazon jungle. While I'm down there, I'll be participating in 5 ayahuasca ceremonies led by a Shipibo medicine man whose bloodline has been doing this for thousands of years. It blows my mind that I was able to go on this trip, and it wouldn't be possible unless it were for you. The amount of donations that I have received for this trip is mind-blowing, and I just want to give a deep appreciation to all of you that are really helping me on this. Oh, wow. But anyways, people, wish me luck. When I get back, I'll definitely make a video about how the experience was, and I'm bringing a lot of filming equipment down there to try to bring the experience to you. So, big love.